Okay, let's make our way now into DocuSign CLM to see how this was configured. I'm going to start by looking at the workflow builder. We'll get into the workflow builder. We'll look at the document generation and every other thing related to it. We'll also look at the configuration of the workflow. We'll look at user management. Then we'll end up by looking at reporting. And I guess I missed one thing, deployment. So let's go ahead. So here we are in DocuSign, and I'm an admin, so I can see everything. In here, I would like for us to go ahead and take a look at the workflow. The activity here just shows us what we just completed. So this is the workflow that we just completed, and that's what you can see underneath here. If I go to configuration, I would like for us to go through the Capstone workflow, which is the one that I'm currently using. Then we can come back in here and talk about some other stuff. So I just want to go open up the workflow itself and let's talk briefly through it. Yeah, let's talk about it. And no, I do not want to recover. I'm gonna say cancel. Wondering why you asked me that, but I learned that I recovered once and I actually lost a lot of things, so I'm not doing that anymore. So I learned the hard way. So this is what my workflow looks like at the moment. Let me close this up, and I'm going to move this so that we have enough space to see what I put together. Let me make this slightly bigger. So this is what it looks like. Aesthetics are not the best here, but I'm not gonna fix it. I was trying to make this look as beautiful as possible. Didn't realize that this had even gone up. But again, the workflow starts. We have variables that we've created that are pulling in from that first page. When you see, you're able to see like the customer name and the folder where the contract gets stored once it's done. We have the step to update information to be able to show the customer name. This is where we set that up. We also have another step that goes ahead and picks up all the attributes and matches them. So whatever we've configured on the form, it picks all of those up and it matches them right in here. We update the document metadata from the attributes that we have created, right? So again, you remember when I showed you the stage when it says it was a review and all of that, what department it is in, the state, all of that is being configured in this update metadata step. Here, I brought this in here because I wanted to be able to define the contract name that will help me in making the decision as to is this a third-party contract or is this a standard contract. So again, I had to build this in here. This is actually a step that could be merged with any of the other update ones, but I already built this. I didn't want to take it out. Here I have the update CSV file, and this CSV file is a file that contains the emails of whichever department. So if you can remember when I did the form, I picked different people. This CSV file will have the sales, it has HR, it has compliance, it has legal with the emails assigned to them. And the reason, one of the advantages of something like this is so that in case something changes, right, somebody leaves a company or this person is no longer in charge of legal, or all we need to do is to go update that file, that CSV file. You don't need to come into the workflow to make that kind of edit. So those are things that we can actually do out of the workflow, and it is still going to merge because we are already calling it from in here. After that, I take us to the decision where we decide on, hey, is this a standard contract or is it a third-party contract? And I set a condition to meet that with the contract name, the one I just showed you that I defined earlier on. From there, so we see if it is a third party, it's going to go this route. So it stays in the manager review. If it's a third party, the manager has to review this. It stays in here. If it is generated, it goes to legal review. So depending on which template we pick, it's either going to go this route or it is going to go this route. And if it's a manager, we saw that case where they had to find the document, we updated the metadata, and also we saw how we went ahead and updated Salesforce, and the manager had the option to either approve or reject. And in case the test we did was they actually rejected, and when they rejected, it updated Salesforce and also created a task. And once that was done, it ended the workflow. So this is the reject route for the manager. But if the manager approved it, then it's going to come and meet with this other one. So both of them are going to meet here and continue the workflow process. So this is on the exception case is for rejection here is it takes this route, but if it gets approved and this one, it's going to come and take the same route as the standard contract. So they'll all go through the legal review process. So in the legal review process, I bring in the params and I update the keyword to legal review. That's one of the things that we're able to see on the description in Salesforce when you see where the contract is at. I use a find document here in order to pull my email settings, right? So I created an email setting for each of these departments, for manager, for legal, and internal, and then for the send for signature. So I am using this find document step to bring that document in. So I use path to pull that document in, and once that is done, I go ahead and I create a variable for it so that I can easily find and reuse it in other steps as needed. And the next step here, you see, after finding that document that I just showed you, I'm able to use it now on the variable. So I populate the email, the notification, the task notification that gets sent out to legal, right? So for the subject, I just pull it from the email setting, and I'll show you that after I get out of this workflow, I pull that the approval instructions and this. So that is what I do here. Then another thing I do is that I update Salesforce. So I update Salesforce again because when it comes this route, I want it to update the contract status field to legal review, and the stage name should stay at negotiation and review. When that is done, it comes again for approval. Legal, again, remember, I had to approve 2 times. It comes again to approval. Legal now is going to review the document and assign it and send it out. So if they approve it, it's going to go to the use task groups in here. So I created task groups, and task groups are, for example, let's look at our example here. We have a sales team, like we can call that a sales manager team. We have the legal team. So I actually created task group for that. And you see I have the internal, the legal, and the sales team. So in this case, I assigned it to the legal team, and within that legal team, I chose a user. So that's why I picked myself again. So within the legal team, because I'm part of the legal team, I chose a user. And again, I picked the option of anyone assignee can respond to this. Then I give instructions. So once that is done, so if it gets rejected, I have this task here for rejection is to find this rejection. So I also set a rejection email for this instance where it goes and it finds the rejection config form. And what it does is it's going to send that rejection config form when it sets the email and everything saying that, hey, this contract has been rejected. What happens is that it's going to update all of that information, send a notification, and this from here, the person that is chosen to review that document is going to be able to edit it And once it is edited, everything looks good, it's going to go back. An action is completed, it's going to go back. It's going to come now down to the choice. So this is where now legal can look at it and say, yes, this was done right, and they can now choose the next step for what happens. So it comes to choice. The same thing, so all of that happens before it comes to choice. That is if it is rejected. But if it is not rejected, if it is approved, it comes straight to choice. And choice again I call this the decision hub. So this is where legal makes that decision of what happens. This can go different ways. It can either go for vendor review. This is a route we took when I did the demo. It went for legal review. We found the document for the email settings to make sure that it was right. We it was sent for external review. We looked at it, and the route we took is we completed without document. So if they edited and uploaded a new document, it will go this route, whichever one they do. We wanted to update the value, like, hey, we updated the contract. The stage is going to change to update the contract, and it goes again to legal. Another route that legal can actually reject this, right? They can say, hey, this doesn't look good, and they can reject it, and it's going to stop the workflow. They can also say, hey, we want to send this for internal review, and internal review will look at it. That's still within the company. They look at it and they say, okay, does this look right? They'll find the document, they will use the internal review, the settings for the internal review. They assign it to whoever is in charge. Here, I also use task groups here. And in this task group, I use internal team, and I assign it to one of the users in the internal team, and so forth. In this case, if internal looks at it and they're like, hey, this is good to go, they complete it. So they can complete, and it's going to go back to choice. The next level for the choice is to send for signature. So one thing that choice does is also it sends that document down for signature. If they send it down for signature, it comes in here. When it comes in for signature, this is where we also define who is going to sign this. So we pick the params. Remember, we always pick the params document because that is what our document generation is based on. It defines here we see that we have two recipients. This is what I wanted to show. So instead of it comes from one, it comes from legal, but it's going to two recipients. And by two recipients here, we see that it's going to either legal or internal is going to sign this, and the customer will sign it. So this gets done first, then this done, then the signing process is complete. So we have two signatories at the end. If this does not get completed, if it doesn't get signed, right, couple of different things will happen. If it gets rejected, it's going to update the variable and say contract not signed. It's going to update the metadata again with the stage, with the and it's going to send it back to choice for them to decide on what to do, for the legal team here, the decision hub, to decide on what to do. That is if it doesn't get signed. So all those other the exception path is handled here, and it goes back to choice if something doesn't go right. And once it is signed, we see that it updates the keywords to signed. It also updates the variable with we have two variables that we're updating here, the current date. For the sign date, we are using current date to update that. And here we are also updating this to sign. And in this case, this is where we do the effective date and the sign date. So remember what we saw in Salesforce? Yeah, so this is where we're capturing this with an expression, the system that did, to make sure that it matches Salesforce. So we capture this two in here using an expression. And once this is done, it updates Salesforce now to closed one. It also updates the stage to the contract status to signed. So, and after all of that is done, it ends the workflow. So this is what happens. Next, we're going to go into the configuration and the document generation to see what happens in there.